You're listening to a Monster Kid podcast.
Hi and welcome to A Dingo Ate My Movie, a podcast that features classic Ozploitation and other weird, wonderful, overlooked and underappreciated Australian films from the 70s, 80s and beyond. My name is Pete and I'm your host.
The Night Rider. That is his name. The Night Rider. Remember him when you look at the night sky.
All right, I'm happy to be joined today by somebody very new to the podcast, so I'd like to welcome to the show Angie Frissore.
Hi.
I got that right?
You got that right. That's perfect.
It's great to have somebody new on the show, new perspectives, all that sort of stuff.
It's awesome to be here.
Have you been exposed much to these sort of films, these Ozploitation films or anything like that?
I have to an extent, not as much as I'd like to, just because I'm sure I'm ignorant of so much that is out there that exists. But yeah, I mean, I kind of get hooked on it. You know, when I watch one film, that leads to another, and I just want to watch more and more.
Awesome stuff. So today we're going to have a chat about Fair Game. It stars Cassandra Delaney, and who else does it star?
Stars Cassandra Delaney, and we've got Peter Ford, David Sanford, and Gary Hu. Gary Hu, I think he was a sitcom star.
He's a comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to Gary Hu. So Gary Hu, if you're listening, let me know. Hopefully you're still around somewhere. I remember seeing him when I was in the VHS days. We used to watch a lot, like with a few of my mates, we'd always get lots of comedy videos out. And there was like a stand-up video, you know, of like these 4 or 5 guys doing stand-up at a club. And he was one of the guys. I think it was him, another guy called Vince Sorrenti, who was very funny as well. And so I think Gary Hu did that. He also was in, Gary Hu was a cop in Dead End Drive-In as well.
Yes.
Which is another
Yes.
Ozploitation film.
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Have you seen Dead End Drive-In?
Of course.
It's a great movie.
I
It's so
love that
good.
movie. Of course, every time I watch it, I feel like I have to take a shower afterwards. Like it's just,
Right.
you get this like kind of gross feeling.
It's a bit irky because they're just in cars and not really sharing or anything.
Yeah.
So,
It's a little creepy.
yeah. So the synopsis of Fair Game is that Jessica, who's played by Cassandra Delaney, has a wildlife sanctuary in outback Australia and is threatened by 3 men she finds hunting on her property. The men, bored with hunting kangaroo, turn their attention to Jessica, who they later realize is much, much more than easy prey that they expected. It's pretty much like a revenge plot, right?
It is. When I was watching it, I was actually reminded of the movie Revenge that came out. It wasn't too long ago that it came out, but it was something similar.
Yeah. It's got it's bits of that. It's a little bit, although not quite as bad, like graphic. It's a little bit of I spit on your grave kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, where she's tormented and then, you know, takes enough. But then it's really interesting, right? And I know I'm going off the script I sent you here, but it's really interesting that like she kind of escalates things a few times herself, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think?
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Things like welding the guns together and all that sort of stuff.
She takes chances that some of which are unnecessary. When something happens, you're kind of like, I maybe had that one coming.
Yeah, I'm not really sure whether if she'd let up, whether they would have stopped anyway.
Something tells me they wouldn't have.
No, I don't think so either.
I think these guys were really, really bored.
There's only so many kangaroos you can shoot.
And you have to be like really, really desperately bored to do what these gentlemen did.
Absolutely. Like running a house down.
Yeah.
If you're going to watch this movie and you're concerned about cruelty to animals, there'll be implied things in this movie about, you know, kangaroos being shot and things like that. It's not on the level of, I guess, Wake in Fright, where you actually see kangaroos being shot.
Right. A lot of it's implied.
It's a lot of it's implied, but I know when I did the episode for Wake in Fright with Jay, we were talking about it, and he was having a few difficulties, like actually watching those scenes when he was watching the movie. So, if you're an animal lover, well, we're all animal lovers. I guess just some people kind of don't enjoy that sort of thing as much. So it's in this movie a bit.
Yeah. I have to say, though, I did feel somewhat like a bad person because there was one scene in particular where I've never been so happy to see a dead kangaroo versus what the alternatives were.
Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this one's got a few. It's got like the dead sheep that went into the dam, and which later on pops back up when she's hiding behind it.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, immediately you think the sheep is an idiot and fell in, but then you see the pack of camels.
I wonder if they got any money from whoever the camel people are, because there was a lot of actually there was a bit of product placement in this movie. It was quite interesting that way.
It's just like, hey, let's cross our fingers and say, hey, we put your stuff here. Can you pay us?
Because there was Camel cigarettes. I think there was Tooheys was the beer. I think they had Tooheys beer. The guy was using the box as a pillow, and yeah, there's a few things like that. Other people in this movie that we've had in our movies previously, Peter Ford, who played Sonny, had a really small part. I can't even remember what part it was, but he was in Mad Max originally as well. And, of course, as we said, Gary Hu played a cop in Dead End Drive-In, which was way back in episode 3. All right, so where did I watch this? So I watched this on the Umbrella Entertainment Blu-ray. So, again, it's another plug for Umbrella. Maybe I should be asking them for sponsorship, because nearly every movie I have on this podcast is an Umbrella release. The release I watched, it's not a brand new one, but it's a pretty good. It was remastered or transferred from a restored 2K master. Has an audio commentary with the director. I'm going to mess his name up. Mario Andricchio, I think his name is.
Well done. As an Italian, well done.
I did all right. Well, I've got an Italian last name as well, right?
It's true. Yeah.
So
yeah.
we Italians are going to stick together. And the writer, Rob George. So it's got a fair bit. There's a bit of a behind-the-scenes featurette, or there's a couple, I think, that aren't too bad. And then there's usual trailer and images and things like that. And it's also got 5 short films that Mario Andricchio made as well. I didn't watch those, so I'll get to sit down and watch those some other time. Where did you watch this?
I had to watch it on YouTube, of all places.
Yes.
Very hard to find a copy of it here, which is unfortunate. There's so many great Aussie movies that are just not available.
It's really interesting. This movie recently had a little theatrical run in the US in a few select theaters. They did that. Yeah.
They did, yeah. Wasn't it written as sort of a joke? Or not to be taken seriously at all, I should say.
Yeah. I think Mario Andricchio was saying in the commentary, or I read somewhere that he was saying that, like, his idea was kind of like to make a comic book sort of movie and that sort of thing. But I was kind of thinking when I was watching this, I was like, surely he knows he's making an exploitation movie, especially when he's strapping a woman to the front of the car with no top on, right?
Yeah.
That's an exploitation movie.
Just a bit.
It is a bit. And this is another movie that Quentin Tarantino loves. He's got this this thing for Australian films like this. And I think I recently watched Death Proof again. Have you seen Death Proof?
Of course. I love Death Proof.
It's a great film. Yeah.
It is.
And there's the bit where, is it Zoe Bell has herself strapped to the front of the car?
Yes. Ship's mast.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And I'm thinking, that's very reminiscent of this movie. I'm wondering whether he got the idea from there or something like that.
That didn't even dawn on me, but that's a really good point. Oh.
I love Zoe Bell showing up in his movies.
She's great.
I mean, she's not Australian. She's a Kiwi. She's like a brother to us, right? But yeah, she's great. It just seems out of place. Like sometimes when he has people like that in the movies, like I was watching again Hateful Eight recently, and she's in that, and she doesn't try to hide her accent. So there's all these people in, well, what year was Hateful Eight? So was it 1800s or something like that? I guess maybe.
I think so, yeah.
And I'm thinking, here's this lone Kiwi voice in the middle of this movie. It was the same with who did he put in Django Unchained? John Jarrett.
Yes. Yes.
So he had John Jarratt in Django Unchained. And I thought that was weird because he didn't try to do an American accent or anything. He just had this Australian accent in the middle of Django Unchained. It was a bit out of place.
I loved that. I love that. Yeah. See, I have an excuse as an American. I'm allowed to forget his name. I know his face, but if I forget his name, I have an excuse.
Yeah. And I've had him in a couple of films we've done as well. Like I haven't done Wolf Creek yet, though I'm planning to. And we had him in Next of Kin. I don't know if you've seen that movie. That's a great movie to see. It's really spooky kind of. It's basically a slasher movie. It looks like a giallo movie that looks like a gothic horror. It's kind of a interesting movie.
I think my brain's confusing it with what was it, Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin, or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, maybe, but
Yeah.
it's not Next of Kin with Patrick Swayze either. So it's not that one.
I can't picture them in a movie together now.
No. You could always check Tubi because Tubi is great for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a category that shows up soon just for Ozploitation.
There's probably about half a dozen Ozploitation movies on Tubi at the moment.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
which is quite good. I love Tubi.
Tubi's
It's so good.
wonderful.
I'm always singing its praises because it's free. It has minimal ads. The ads that I see in it, I don't know if they change up, but I'm lucky if I get the most I've seen. I was watching something the other night and there was like 3 ads in a row. And I was like, wow, that's odd. It was 3 instead of 2. And
Yeah.
they're only like 15-second ads, right?
Yeah, they have the most tolerable ad breaks. I love it.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever tried to watch Plex TV.
Oh
their
my
ads are
God.
Unbelievably intolerable. They're terrible. Absolutely terrible.
And then like every 5th ad, it's like twice as loud as everything else.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. It's worse than commercial TV, actually,
Yeah.
in a lot of
Yeah.
cases. Whereas Tubi makes it very manageable and it's quite good. And they have so many weird movies. I love it.
Oh,
They
the
have so many
obscurity
weird
is
strange-
wonderful.
Yeah, it's so good. I love
Yeah.
having like there's so many weird, strange, and they have like every budget they'll have, like I noticed when I was looking the other night, they have The Revenant on there. But then at the other end of the spectrum, they'll have a movie it looks like it was made for $15 sort of thing. It's so great.
Or they have Shark Side of the Moon.
Yes. And
That's on there.
Tubi is where I watched Titanic 2.
Yes, I watched that. Oh my God, it was so bad.
It's so good.
It's like, okay, why would we try it again? Did we learn nothing from the first one?
I think you and I must be kindred spirits this way. I love movies that are just really shit.
Me too. Oh, absolutely.
And as long as I think there's shit movies, but then there's shit movies. Like, some movies that are apparently a good movie to me are a shit movie and I don't enjoy them at all. But I can sit and watch a $15 movie that looks like it was made for $15 and fucking love it.
Yeah,
It's just like Titanic 2.
exactly. Or like Velocipaster.
Haven't they got one on there called The Shark Statist or something like that? Like the like some sort of exorcist sort of
Yeah,
thing with shark.
something.
There's so many shark movies on there. It's amazing. So for a Jaws fan, it's perfect.
It's awesome. It's great.
Interestingly enough, the biggest thing that came out of all the work I did looking into stuff for this movie, the most amazing thing I found was that Cassandra Delaney was married to John Denver.
That boggles my mind.
Unbelievable.
I look at her and I look at him. I don't get it.
It doesn't match. It doesn't match up. It's like she is quite hot, right?
She is. She's beautiful.
And John Denver is not. So I don't know what happened. They were only married for 1988 to 1993, I think. So yeah, 5 years. So when I was searching around the other day, I was looking at something. There was an article in the Australian Women's Weekly or a link to it. I didn't go to it. And it was like something about how John Denver ruined our family or something like that and it was about her or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what John Denver was really like as a person. So
But just picture him as boring as hell.
yeah, well, yeah, I just remember going on car trips with my parents and my dad playing the cassettes over and over of John Denver when we were on car trips. And I was like, oh, stop, you know.
And now I just associate it with Final Destination. It ruined John Denver for me. Not that there was much to ruin anyway, but
I don't mind a couple of his tunes. You know, I'm very open-minded when it comes to music but yeah, he's never been something that's been really, you know, I don't go out of my way to listen.
no, I mean, I guess if I needed to like wind down so I could go to sleep, maybe, but
Yeah. But yeah, I could think of other things to wind down to.
exactly.
John Denver. And apparently I haven't been able to confirm this. I was looking this morning. I'd read somewhere that she's the sister of Delvine Delaney, who means nothing to you. She was best known for her work on the Paul Hogan Show, who does mean someone to you.
Yes.
Well, you know who he is.
Oh, yes.
Which ran for 12 seasons on Australian TV. I think it was between 70-something and 83 or something like that. If you look on YouTube and you just look up Paul Hogan Show, it was basically just a comedy show. You'll see the very early Paul Hogan before he went commercial.
Now that's something they need to put on Tubi.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Paul Hogan Show, yeah. But if you look on, I think you'll find it on YouTube, like you'll find episodes or clips, and it was a pretty funny show.
I'll have to watch that, definitely.
What do you think of Paul Hogan?
I think that he's just become sort of this character of himself, but not by any fault of his own. Just
I liked Crocodile Dundee. Like I've always said, I don't think it's the sort of movie I'll ever do on this show. But never say never, I guess.
And that's the thing, outside of us, like here anyway, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but he's very much Crocodile Dundee.
What was the last movie he did? It was kind of like a pastiche on himself. It was on was it on Netflix or something? It was a Netflix movie or something. I can't remember what it was called, but it was really average. I liked it better when he had a TV show. He was much funnier.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out because again, like he's Crocodile Dundee.
I'm not going to guess your age, but if you like movies in the TV shows in the 70s and comedy shows when you could be funny and not have to worry about being cancelled.
I grew up on like Sam Kinison.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my speed.
You're a comedy writer or something, right?
I was a comedy journalist, I guess you could call it.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
A lot of promotional writing, interviews, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
So you enjoy that stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Who's your favorite comedian?
Such a hard question because there are so many.
Yeah.
Especially doing what I did, I got to know hundreds and hundreds of talented comics that a lot of people don't know. But if I had to pick, it depends on what mood I'm in, I think.
Yeah.
Like if I'm feeling goofy, it's Patton Oswalt. If I'm feeling superior, it's someone like Mike Kaplan, who's very smart, writes very smart comedy. So it's very mood dependent.
Yeah. It's a bit like music, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I like comedy. I used to love it a lot. Like, I like a lot of the old school stuff. Like, I still love Richard Pryor's early stuff and you know, a lot of those sort of guys, which is quite cool. Yes, I like good comedy.
Yeah,
I like a good comedy show.
I don't know if they had this in Australia, but I grew up with the HBO's Young Comedian special.
No, we wouldn't have got those. Well, we might have gotten them, but they might have been called something else or something like that.
Yeah. But those were great. I mean, that I was exposed to so many well-known comedians from such a young age.
Yeah.
We were lucky to have HBO. We were like the first people in our little tiny town to have it. I grew up very young watching horror movies and comedy.
That sounds good. Yeah, I watched horror from pretty early age. I still have memories of trying to, when I think Psycho must have been on TV for one of the first times. This would have been, I don't know, 70-something. I remember trying to sneak in to kind of watch it while my parents were watching it and being told to go to bed and stuff like that. And yeah, I used to sneak horror movies and stuff. It was good.
The great thing about my father is I never had to sneak anything. He was fully supportive of my horror movie.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I try to get my daughter into this, and Kimberly, if you're listening, I'll still try. But she used to have this thing when we go into, remember when they were physical places you could go and buy videos and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
and her consumption of horror was just reading the back jacket of the things. And she always said that it always looks really interesting, but she's never really had the thing for it. Although not long ago she watched Hereditary with her partner, and they both freaked out about it. And I was like, it's a pretty full-on movie to watch if you're not into horror. So
yeah, it's like 0 to 60.
yeah, it is a bit. Do you know she still hasn't watched Halloween, like the first Halloween movie?
Really?
And I was like, next time you come for a visit, we're going to sit down, we're going to watch Halloween. So
Yeah, that's kind of entry level.
yeah.
Like required reading.
Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yep.
Maybe, yeah, they're like the ones. And then the old Universal movies.
Yeah.
They're all ones. So, yeah.
And Night of the Living Dead. Like Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah. All the Living Dead movies.
It's your perfect starter horror movie.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. That was a nice little detour. I like little detours, so this is fine. So it's good. The release in the UK in 1987, they released some video. Apparently they had like almost a minute of cuts in the film, which is, of course, the ones with the clothes being cut off and riding the front of the truck, which is one of those scenes. I think it's probably what this movie's best known for, right? When you think about it's like I don't know, I wouldn't call it a pivotal scene, but it's like the big scene in the movie that most people probably talk about, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and cutting that, cutting that scene makes it the movie that the director wanted it to be, where it wasn't taken too seriously. But that just changed everything.
Although I read this morning, I was doing a bit of quick research before we come on, and I read this morning that apparently, and I've got no way of checking this, that the original theatrical cut didn't have that scene. They said they only added that scene for video. Seems odd.
It does seem odd.
Because it's a very pivotal scene in the movie in a way. It's kind of like it's the point where she goes, okay, enough's enough once that's done, and really starts to fight back.
I mean, if I were Delaney, I'd be like, I went through filming this. You're putting it in the movie. I'm not doing this for nothing.
Yeah. I read it wasn't originally part of the movie, and then he decided to do it, and he went to her and asked her if it was okay, and she was fine with it. I don't want to sound like a voyeur or some weird guy, but it is a great scene. Like it's very. I kept thinking when I was watching that scene, I was like, she's on the front, like in real life, right? I was thinking she's on the front of this car, this truck, and they're driving this truck full bore through sand, dirt, around trees, and I'm like, you only have to have an accident, like hit a tree, and you're done. Right. I'm assuming it was her on the front of the car. I don't think it was anyone else. I'm not sure, but
they probably had it like some shots or some angles.
Maybe.
Her.
Yeah. I was like, Jesus, she had balls to be on the front of that truck, be driven around like that.
It struck me odd. She was very nonchalant about it in that scene. As awful as it was, she was just kind of like, all right, here we go.
Yeah. So if you watch this movie for nothing else, just watch it for that scene.
Exactly.
And just check it out. Yeah. So what were your first thoughts on this film when you watched it?
My first thoughts were kind of a cross between, oh, here we go, this chick's a badass, and okay, now you're just doing stupid things that are going to make your situation worse. For instance, like if I ran into this issue she had with these crazy guys trying to run me off the road and doing what they were doing, I mean, I probably wouldn't go to my home that's wide open, easily accessible, where these people were already trespassing, and take a naked nap. I mean, that to me just seems maybe not the best idea. I mean, I get that it was hot, but probably going to be a little bit more conservative after something like that.
Yeah, she seemed to do that a bit. Like there was a couple. Interestingly enough, with this movie, there's a few scenes where there's kind of like major escalation and then rest time. Major escalation, rest time. Where both of them, like, they go back to their camp, she goes back and has a shower or something like that.
And it's like watching war.
Yeah.
It's like a World War II movie where it's like, okay, Everybody back to the trenches. We're good.
Yeah, yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange. Yeah, I thought initially, I really liked this movie because I've seen this probably, I don't know, maybe half a dozen times or more over the years, and I really like it. I think she's pretty strong in the movie. I think she plays a good part. The guys are menacing enough. Yeah, so I think, overall it's a pretty good movie. I've enjoyed it over the years, and I think the same. I think she makes a lot of trouble for herself.
Yeah, she does a lot of things I can't say to egg them on, because for me, when she's doing the things like tying up their guns and all that stuff, that to me is like, yeah, get those assholes, do it. But yeah, she leaves herself open in a lot of ways. I did like what she did with the cave. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty clever.
Didn't end well for her, but I like what she did with it.
Yeah. Yeah, she had a couple of chances. Like, there was a few stupid, like, I think, well, you've got to have stupid mistakes to kind of move these films along a little bit occasionally. But the cave bit, once she had them in a cave, I don't know what, well, maybe she didn't realize they had a gun and a sharpshooter, really, but why you would just, why you wouldn't just take off. Well, she did take off, but I don't know whether she was going home or what she was going to do.
Yeah, I would have just been out. I would have been like, okay, time for me to haul ass out of here.
Yeah, but I guess it seems like it was very remote. Like, if you look at where she was in the middle of pretty much nowhere.
But she knew they had guns. So it's like, all right, they have guns. Be out of range of a gun.
Also, I don't know many people, like, I've known a few people that have lived on properties, lived on farms, etc., etc. I don't know anyone that lives on a property that size that, even though she is an animal lover and it's an animal reserve, people on properties like that always usually have a gun somewhere.
Yeah.
It just seems to be the way. I mean, there's always vermin, and, there could be some sort of, animals that try and threaten the animals that you have there and things like that.
Yeah.
And
she seemed pretty hippie.
Yeah, she was a bit of a hippie, I think.
Yeah, because the fact that she found the shell casings as proof that they were poaching, it's kind of like, okay, there's no guns here. Like,
no,
she wouldn't. True. It struck me that she wouldn't have thought there would be a need for a gun.
Yeah, I'd say so. And
it did imply. It implied that at least her boyfriend, husband, whoever Ted was, he was away. They briefly mentioned that. So it sort of leaves you with this, okay, is this a damsel in distress because her man's not there? Where is it going to go? I liked that little tidbit.
Yeah. This also the scene early when, she was almost run off the road, and she goes to the shop, picks up her supplies, and I think Sonny is like the alpha male of the three, and he's sort of in there, and he wants to buy her painting, and he thinks it's
$180 now.
Yeah. And she gives away stuff. Like, it's interesting, like, and I guess people kind of almost do this on social media too, where she's just talking to the girl at the counter and says, oh, whatever her husband's name or boyfriend's name was it, who did you say it was? Tony,
Ted.
Todd, whatever. Tony, Todd, Ted. Anyway,
that would have been interesting if it was Tony Todd.
Yeah, he would have been a bit out of place in this movie, but it would have been good. Would have been interesting, yeah. When she sort of tells her that he's out of town, and obviously Sonny kind of hears that, so it's kind of, Sonny's a really interesting character in this movie because he is the alpha male. The other guys seem to do whatever he wants. When I was watching this with May, my wife, she was like, he's actually the most evil of all these men. Like, the other guys are just rat bags, whereas he's a bad person, a really bad person. You see bits of it where there's bits near the end where he's got Gary Hu's character in the car with him in the truck, and they've just, pretty much written off the house and all this sort of stuff. And you can tell by Gary Hu's reaction, or his character's reaction, that he's kind of at the point where, I think we might have gone a little bit too far now, but he kind of just goes along with it because obviously he's an impressionable person who looks up to this guy and sort of just, goes along with it sort of thing. And he's kind of like, he's a really nasty person. And because he's quieter than the other two, he's a little bit more, I don't know, I found him quite, I wouldn't say scary is the wrong word, but he's kind of like unsettling sort of, character.
He's struck me as the sociopath of the group.
Yeah,
because
he is. Yeah.
it almost feels to me that at first he wanted to apologize for the other two and how they behaved on the road because he saw her and was like, oh, she's just a beautiful woman. But then she rejects him, and that pissed him off. And that's when that other side came out, and he just became fixated on revenge.
And they just went along with it. Like, they're pretty crazy. Like the two characters he has with him are just like truly just crazy. Like they said, the Gary Who character just goes along with it. But the other character, is it Ringo? His name is, I think. And he's pretty crazy as well. He doesn't have that, but he's just crazy anyway. He just likes doing stuff like hanging off a truck and the truck turning really quickly, and he gets thrown off the truck, and he just wants to. I think he's the one that kind of initially is like, oh, let's just kill her sort of thing.
Yeah.
But he keeps getting pulled up a bit by Sonny. I'm not sure Sonny actually ever wanted to kill her until pretty close to the end of the movie. I got the feeling they just wanted to sort of mess with her and ruin her property and all this sort of stuff. I don't know how they ever thought they were going to get away with it, though.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got the opposite feeling. I feel like at first Sonny was just like, let the boys have their fun. And then the more she started fighting back, again, she was chipping away at that ego of his. And the other two were just kind of like, all right, how far are we going to go with this? I
wouldn't say he's a complex character, but for this sort of movie, he's reasonably complex. The truck that they drive in this movie is almost a character in this movie as well, right? It's big. It's got those big bars on it. Even some of the sound effects when it's driving at night and the lighting, it's really, really interesting. It's got shades. There's almost like shades of Razorback a little bit in this movie. I don't know if you've seen Razorback, but there's little shades of that, mostly in the night scenes and the colors and things like that. But it's a really interesting truck, and apparently more the reason they had all the bars all over it wasn't just for looks, because they knew it was going to have to take down a house, so they wanted to make sure it was protected. But it was quite a truck.
They had to death-proof it.
They had to death-proof it. That's right. Back to that movie. I love that movie so
movie.
much. Did you even get to see them together like they were meant to be?
I did, yeah, at the theater. Yeah, it was awesome. No, it was really fun.
I got the special Blu-ray set that's got all the trailers and all the other stuff with it, which is great. Yeah, I don't know if people really got the concept of those movies, though, because they weren't very successful, really.
Here they were.
They were, yeah.
Yeah, they were popular. I mean, I'm not sure how they did in the box office, but a lot of, because when they were released individually, people were kind of pissed. Like, well, why would you release them individually and when it was so much better to see the whole experience?
The whole thing. Yeah, that's true too. So the nude sleeping, like you said, like it's not something you would really think she would do if she knew there was guys sort of like after her. But it is pretty early on in the movie, and I don't know how she wasn't woken up with that camera.
Yeah, how did she sleep through that? Especially with it being so hot. I can't imagine she was that deep sleep,
But it is a great scene when she goes to the fridge and opens the fridge up and sees the photo.
That's so creepy.
It's really well done.
I got chills.
Super creepy, yeah.
Yeah, that's every girl's nightmare.
It is, yeah.
It really is.
And there's also scenes of this movie that are a bit weird. Like there's issues with the phone. There's a scene where she's obviously on the phone to Ted, but there's also scenes where she tries to call but the phone line's dead. But then later on the phone rings, but then they cut the line again or something like that. It's like the phone works and doesn't work.
I wonder, I think I kind of chalk that up to just being like a remote area type of thing, that maybe it cuts in and out sometimes.
Yeah, which is why she runs off to the neighbor's place, which I don't know if it's true or not. Like, Sunny is saying that they're working there.
Yeah.
When she finally confronts him, I'm like, really? What would they be doing there? They're roo hunters. I didn't know they were like house maintenance people or something like that, or builders or whatever.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder: did they actually do something to the people that lived there, or it just happened to be away, so they just put themselves in that house or something, or they just followed her there?
Yeah.
Was probably
Yeah,
the most likely thing.
Probably.
But I don't know how far away that house was. I'm assuming, in the countryside like that, the house is still a pretty long way away.
Yeah, it had to be a decent distance.
Any particular scenes you really like?
Obviously, the end where the dog comes back, wounded but alive.
Yeah, I was always worried about the dog.
The end of it where she's got the dog in her arms, walking away. Oh, just tugs at my heartstrings.
Isn't that funny with movies though, right? You see, I think I was on Twitter last week and somebody was kind of like live tweeting, watching something, and they were talking about don't kill the animal. But
I wonder if it's because we are so aware that when people die in movies, it's fake. Maybe there's like this, it's harder to separate from the reality of killing animals.
When animals die in movies, they're fake too.
Right, but maybe we have a harder time accepting that separation of reality and
Yeah,
fantasy.
I suppose so. Especially when they're like dogs or cats
yeah.
or something that, people are close to.
Yeah.
Like, not so much kangaroos that are shoved in front of seats of cars like in this
Well,
case.
I mean, that's still pretty like.
So they put this kangaroo in the front seat of a car. Looked like it had been obviously killed and skinned and shoved it there.
Yeah, because it was hard to tell at first. Like, I wasn't sure. I'm like, wait a minute, was that the sheep? And I had to actually go back and watch it again. I'm like, okay, it's a kangaroo.
I want to know how they got the car back there, because that car went through a massive pothole.
Yeah.
And looks like she lost the whole drivetrain in the back of the car.
And she slept through the whole thing, didn't she?
Yeah, she sleeps through a lot in this movie.
She's very calm and relaxed.
She is a little toy. She can just go and have a shower,
Yeah.
I mean, after the ordeal she went through on the bonnet of the car, I can understand her going and having a shower. And the only thing I was sad about the horse being shot. So there was an animal killed.
Yeah, that was gut-wrenching.
That was terrible, and I thought that was quite sad, and it would have been nice if she'd kind of, the horse had got away at some stage. So I would have liked it better, I guess, that if the shot had scared the horse rather than thrown her again and run off. But, they decided to kill. I thought when I was watching that scene, I was like, how do they get horses to act like that? Like, because they don't really kill the horse, but there's a horse lying on the ground looking like it's dying.
Yeah.
How do they do that? It's like amazing. So if you're a horse trainer for movies, let me know.
Yeah.
I want to know how
I
they
know,
do it.
that'd be interesting. I mean, they got to be, they're smart like dogs. So you could train dogs to do things like that.
I guess. Yeah, it's interesting with the animal acting. Have you seen Prey yet?
No, I don't know why I haven't watched it yet. Every day I'm like, oh, I got to watch Prey. And then another day goes by.
The dog in that's really good.
That's what I hear. I hear he's like the unsung hero.
Yeah, it was a rescue dog. It wasn't a trained dog. Like, how usually dogs in movies are trained for years and years to do what they do. So they said they had a bit of trouble getting it to do some things and they had to be patient with it. But it ended up, it was fantastic in the movie. Yeah, you need to watch Prey this weekend.
I'm going to watch that tomorrow. Actually, maybe I'll watch it tonight.
So the scene I wanted to talk about when we sort of head towards the end is when she finally gets up and puts together all the traps for the guys at the end. I don't know how she kind of figured out everything she was going to do, but she kind of set things up pretty well, especially the very last trap where she sets up the fake ground and the truck drives into the big hole, which I thought was really cool.
It felt like she shouldn't have had enough time to do all that.
No, I thought it would have taken hours and hours. I think she did it where we had one of those periods like we mentioned before where they were all asleep and she would decide to stay awake and do all the traps and stuff. So
it was pretty ingenious. It was like Home Alone on crack.
It was a little bit like that, yeah. And the traps are great. And we have the whole thing where she set up the whole thing for whatever his name is to get Ringo to get electrocuted.
That was the best.
Which I thought was quite cool.
That was the best. I was kind of mad that Sonny held the other guy back. It was like, don't touch him.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, touch him. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was pretty ingenious.
yeah.
And then Sparks, his name is. That's
Yep.
right. That's Gary, whose character Sparks. He gets impaled on an anvil. It was almost like Roadrunner Kent cartoon. Because it looked like one of those Acme anvils, right? That you see in the Roadrunner.
I think they were like, all right, how do we kill this guy off? I don't know, just throw him
Yeah.
against that
Let's
thing.
just have him, yeah. It doesn't quite kill him because he comes back for the last little after, when you think everything's
That
okay.
last little like,
at the
boo,
end, yeah.
okay, now I'm dead.
Maybe he didn't die. Interesting. Who knows? And then Sonny, of course, gets his. He's like, he gets like the probably the worst way to die, which is basically stuck in a car. He's impaled with a bit of fence post that she actually throws at him, which is quite cool. I love the scene. I love the pose she has when she stands back and she's throwing it. It's on all the posters, I think, or most of the posters and stuff. And then she throws a Molotov cocktail into the car.
That's a horrible way to go. But he deserved it. He totally deserved it. It was very fitting.
Yeah, by the end of the film, you're really happy he's gone and done that way.
Yeah, you're not shedding any tears for good old Sonny.
I always wondered, like, what happened when Ted came home.
You really let the place go, dear.
Yeah, you did. I don't know. Insurance pays on this.
I don't know what to ask about first, the car or the house.
So yeah, fun movie.
It was a fun movie. To laugh that the director didn't want to take it seriously, but yet it's so creepy. It's so just like, like it strikes a chord with every woman, like every single fear that a woman has, being isolated, like all of them.
Yeah, it's an exploitation film, as much as he says
it
it's
absolutely
not.
is.
Even if he didn't know he was making it. So I always ask this of everyone that comes on. Have you got anything to plug?
Well,
where can people find you? What are you up to?
I have a very small YouTube series that I started last year called Today I Get To. And soon I will get to have the band Too Much Joy on that show, which will be nice. Basically, it's a series of me doing fun stuff, like talking to movie directors or musicians that I like and things I want to share with people.
Sounds great. Sounds really good. It's great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
It's been so much fun. I'm so thankful that you had me on here.
And when we return, we'll talk about what's coming up next.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
Captain's log. So far, no sign of intelligent life forms.
Wow. That's awesome.
Looks like we might be spending the night.
What the hell?
Just stay in the car.
What the bloody hell are you mob doing out here? Scared the shit out of me.
So, where did you live?
Oh, I get around here. Never know where I might pop up.
What do you actually do?
I can tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
Let's play.
Next on A Dingo Ate My Movie, Tab from Test Pattern is back to discuss Wolf Creek from 2005. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. Thank you to all my guests who give their time to make this podcast possible, and a special thanks to you for listening. Don't forget you can follow A Dingo Ate My Movie on social media. We're at Dingo Movie on Twitter, Dingo Movie Pod on Facebook and Instagram, and we're on the web at dingomoviepod.com. If you'd like to support the show, leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, or share the show with your friends. Of course, you can always buy me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/dingomoviepod. Once again, thanks for listening, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next episode of A Dingo Ate My Movie.